Dorothea Puente was a troubled woman living in California. She lost both her parents by age 9 and was sent to live in an orphanage. While there, she was sexually abused repeatedly. To escape, she got married young to a World War II soldier. Their marriage didn't last long. During their brief relationship, Dorothea bore two daughters. One was put up for adoption, and the other was sent away to live with family members. After 3 years together, her husband left her. After the divorce, Dorothea was caught buying clothes with stolen and forged checks. She was sent to prison for 4 months, but the stint did not set her on the right track. She got married for a second time and claimed to be of Israeli and Egyptian descent. It's not clear why she did this, other than she was a frequent liar. She was soon operating a brothel under the guise of a legitimate business and was again arrested. Because of this, she was committed to a psychiatric hospital. She was a known liar, alcoholic, and gambler, and she was constantly participating in illegal activities. While there, she was diagnosed with a personality disorder and pathological lying. After the hospital stay, her husband could no longer deal with her and they divorced. Now twice divorced, Dorothea began calling herself Sharon Johansson. She opened her home to unwed mothers and women suffering abuse in a bid to appear as a legitimate and kind, God-fearing woman. In 1968, Dorothea married a man named Jose Puente, and they remained married until 1973, even though they had been living separately after a couple of years. While living in Sacramento, she opened her home to the helpless yet again. These people were homeless, mentally ill, and/or alcohol dependents. She hosted AA meetings and helped those people sign up for Social Security benefits. It seemed as though she was finally getting on the right track. She looked the part. Gray hair, glasses, and reserved, old-fashioned clothes gave her the appearance of a gentle old woman. She allowed a woman named Ruth Monroe to live with her in 1982. Mrs. Monroe had a terminally ill husband, and when she died, police believed it was a suicide from an overdose of acetaminophen and codeine. Dorothea had told them that Mrs. Monroe was depressed due to her husband's impending death, and it was ruled a suicide. Only a month later, the police were again called to her residence. An older man named Malcolm Mackenzie claimed that Dorothea had drugged him and stole some money from him. She was arrested yet again and spent 5 years in prison. While in prison, she began a correspondence with Everson Gilmuth, and when she was released, he took her to his home. They began planning for a wedding. However, in November of 1985, Dorothea was offering her boyfriend's truck as payment to a contractor, a man who she requested to build a wood-paneled room for her. She also claimed to need an oblong box to store items and asked him to build this for her as well. After the work was completed, they drove the long box full of books to a highway dumping ground, and she asked the contractor to help her dispose of the box in the designated area. The box was found by a fisherman who informed police, and when they opened it, they found the body of a decomposed elderly man inside. It was Mr. Gilmuth. As the police couldn't identify him, he wasn't known to be missing. Dorothea continued to cash his Social Security and pension checks, never reporting him missing. To keep her ruse from being discovered, she told his family through written letters that he was sickly and unable to contact them directly. In the meantime, she was still taking in boarders. She would take their checks, give them an allowance, and keep the rest for herself to cover expenses. One man, known simply as Chief, was residing with her and several other tenants. Chief did handiwork around the house and was witnessed pouring new cement in Dorothea's garage and basement. It was never explained why she requested this, but it wasn't long before Chief disappeared. It wasn't until 1988 that people began questioning Dorothea about her residence. A man with schizophrenia named Alvaro Montoya lived in her boarding house, but his social worker contacted police to report him missing. When the police went to talk to Dorothea about Montoya, they noticed that her yard had freshly dug soil, and upon inspection, they found the body of a different resident, a woman named Leona Carpenter. Once she was discovered, a further investigation ensued, and she was found to have murdered 7 of her residents. During autopsies, it was discovered that Dorothea overdosed the residents and then buried them in her yard. Unbelievably, the police didn't include Dorothea as a suspect, and she was allowed to leave the scene until the rest of the bodies were discovered. She left Los Angeles but was eventually recognized and arrested after some time. After the trial, she was sentenced to life without parole. She claimed that the residents died of natural causes. She died in 2011 at age 82. She was not executed.